What do you get when you mix We Need to Talk About Kevin with Man of Steel? I give you Brightburn. Welcome to Comic Chop News. I'm Dan, and this week's review is going to be Brightburn. I just got out of the movie, so it's going to be a spoiler review and just kind of go through a little bit of my thoughts and kind of talk you through some of the stuff in it. So, right away in the movie, it starts out with Elizabeth Banks and who plays Tori, and the husband Kyle. I want to say his actor's name was David Denman. They focus in on their bookshelf as the movie's starting, and you see there's a bunch of infertility books and how to conceive. So they're right away selling you on they're having trouble having a child, and she hears something in the background, and her husband's like, "Oh, what is it? What is it?" And then she's starting to walk. Then you feel the house shaking and everything, and they head outside, and it skips to showing movie footage of a child. So right away, we're getting right into the Superman origin aspects of this movie. And there's a montage of kid videos, and we go ahead to seeing a 11-year-old Brandon at this point, and he's in school, and much like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween 1978, what they say in this class is kind of a thesis for the movie. So in it, the teacher is talking about what's the difference between bees and wasps. And Brandon he gives details on it. Wasps are predators, bees are pollinators, and he discusses in it, giving facts of how wasps don't build their own nests and they'll forcibly take over other nests. And weirdly, that's the thesis statement for the movie, kind of what is happening. As he turns 12 on his birthday, he starts hearing these weird voices, and the voices are coming from the barn. He sleepwalks kind of to the barn. He can't get it open, and just hearing this alien voice over and over again. And then this weird behavioral change starts happening. The ship kind of acts like almost a signal of like a Manchurian Candidate type programming in Brandon. The next night on his birthday, they take him out. His uncle gives him a gun. The family's not too happy. The husband, Kyle, is like, "No, I don't need this. He doesn't need to have this." And Brandon starts to have his first fit, where his behavior just isn't kind of matching. After that, the father's making nice to him. They're outside working on a door. He tells Brandon to mow the lawn. Brandon's having trouble operating the lawnmower, and as he's pulling the string, he throws it. And he goes back over to where he threw it, and he exhibited super strength for the first time. And he sees the lawnmower blade twirling and decides to shove his hand into it. Wrecks the mower. So now we start seeing the superpowers. As this is all going on, he's exhibiting just completely weird behavior that is starting to worry Tori and the father. They take him out camping, and they just figure it's just puberty, and they're having the birds and bees. And father's like, "Well, sometimes you just kind of have to give in to your nature." Brandon takes this as a weird, "I'm going to go sneak into this girl at school's house that I like." And he starts playing this music on her computer, and kind of creepy, and then she sees him kind of floating out the window. And then this girl Caitlyn is super freaked out for him. And in school, they're having a moment where they're doing kind of a trust fall thing, and as it's Brandon's turn, the girl's creeped out by him, and she lets him fall. So the teacher's like, "Hey, you got to pick him up or I'll fail you." So she goes to hold her hand out to let him up, and he crushes her hand, which leads to the mother of the girl basically saying what a sicko he is and kind of saying, well, the school psychologist is his aunt. And from there, we start seeing kind of the sociopathic tendencies. I'll go ahead and say now, the child actor playing Brandon, I don't know if it was a choice by the filmmakers or something else, but he's almost a blank slate. It's what you kind of imagine Michael Myers is supposed to be. He's got a little bit of Norman Bates, but he just has this blank expression constantly, where I almost feel like they want you to project your feelings onto how you're interpreting him. And as the movie goes on, his behavior, just monosyllabic replies. You have to guess if he's being sincere or lying. He sneaks into the girl's house again and gives her flowers, and he says, I'm special. And this is after him finding his spaceship, and he gets cut for the first time from the spaceship. So his form of kryptonite is in there. He had freaked out at the house prior to that, basically saying, you guys lied to me. I'm not your son. He's breaking glasses. He runs off, and the voice from the ship keeps playing in his head, and he starts deciphering it, and it's telling him to take the world. And now, sorry, I'm off track. He ends up at that girl's house saying, I'm special. I can't reveal it now. And the girl's like, you can't be here. My mom does not want you here. And he goes, well, I'm going to take care of that. So we cut to the diner where her mother is, and he attacks her. This is where the movie goes into almost horror territory, where he's kind of playing games with his super speed. He has this weird ability that he kind of affect electricity and make the lights flicker. He makes a light bulb explode, one of those big T8 ceiling fluorescents, and a piece of glass shoots in her eye, and pretty graphic scene of her pulling the glass out of her eye. And they have a scene where, she's covering one eye, trying to figure out see where it is, and everything's distorted. And then by this time, Brandon has made this mask, which I do like the idea of it. It has like shoelaces in it, so it's something like a kid could really make. And he chases her into the freezer, uses his laser eyes to kind of cut it and then bust it open, and then they show swooping in, and then her scream, and then it cuts to the police the next day trying to investigate it. At this point, Brandon has a bad habit of, he has this logo he's made. It looks like a double B, but it could be a bunch of different things. But he wrote it all over the windows outside of the restaurant, and it also plays in later on for Discovery. And basically, Brandon now, the more sociopathic tendencies come out. He has this discussion with his aunt because the police, after he broke the hand, they wanted a psychologist to talk to him. And she talks to him, and he's kind of, the answers he's giving are worrying her. And he's like, Mom and Dad don't need to know this, and neither do the police. It's not going to be good for you if you do that. And she's getting a little worried. He shows up there later, kind of gives the same speech, and he breaks into the house just as his uncle comes in. The uncle finds him, takes the mask off, and that's when Brandon decides that he's going to go super psycho on him. And another brutal scene, he takes the truck that his uncle's in, goes up into the sky, and throws it down nose first. And his uncle's jaw breaks off from hitting the steering wheel, and he's gurgling on blood. Brandon's just kind of staring at him while he's doing that, and takes 2 fingers, moves it over to where his mouth is, takes the blood, and he leaves the calling card symbol again, which the police find. So all of this is going on now. The father, Kyle, is starting to kind of piece together there's something super wrong with this kid. Brandon attacks him in the kitchen one day, and he finds a bloody shirt from that murder. Brandon had come home saying he lost his shirt playing soccer. It had gotten ripped off of him. They all knew he was lying. So he decides, after Elizabeth Banks, Tori stops talking to him because she's upset because he said, the kids, there's something really wrong. And she's basically playing mother hen that, nothing could be wrong with her baby boy. He takes him out camping where they go hunting, and while that's going on, the police detective, sheriff shows up at the house showing the symbols of the double B, and she tells him he can't search the house. She goes upstairs and sees the symbols all over his notebook, and also him drawing pictures of murders he's committed. Very good pen art, I gotta say, like real detailed, fine lines. As that's going on, Kyle, as Brandon is looking at deer tracks, taking his rifle, and he's pointing it at the kid's head. Not realizing he can take a gunshot. He shoots him in the head. The kid turns around, and he's annoyed, basically. And it's a weird look of betrayal, and now look what you made me do. So he chases him through the woods, and he uses his laser eyes and just annihilates him. Like, the head shoots out the back, the skull. Brutal. And it's that weird thing where what they show in the trailer really does not take you to the point of, holy crap, this is a horror movie. By this point, he is back at the house. Elizabeth Banks is calling the husband's cell phone to tell him, oh my God, Brandon's a murderer, and Brandon's on the other line. He picks up his dad's phone and goes, I'm home already. And he smashes the phone and then starts super speed flying through the house, busting holes, and then playing hide and seek with her. She jumps off the roof at one point and decides, okay, I know the ship hurt him and made him bleed. It's the only thing we've ever seen make him bleed. So she goes in the barn, busts a piece of it off, and they have a confrontation. She takes the mask off and she's hugging him, and he stops for a bit. He maybe does really love her, but just as she's going to stab him with the piece, he catches her arm and then gives her this disappointed look and flies into the substratosphere. And gives her this, when they hit the stratosphere, this look of just non-remorse, and drops her. And as he does that, a plane's coming. And then it cuts ahead to showing the police and everybody else at the farm. He made the 747 fall into his house, break apart, and everybody's dead except for him, and he's eating a cookie in the back of one of the ambulances. And then the credits start, and as the credits are playing, you see a vlogger, Michael Rooker of all people, and he's talking about the masked man who destroyed Brightburn and is causing destruction all over. And then they weirdly set up that there's other superhumans that have been locked away by the government, and it makes this kind of almost invincible expanded universe. It's a very interesting movie. I did have some problems with the pacing, and I know other reviewers have also mentioned about Brandon. You don't get enough about him to get a personality from him or learn to like him. For me, it felt like he was a blank slate that we were forced to project on. He didn't annoy me like the kid from the Babadook, but at the same time, Elizabeth Banks by far was the strongest character in this, and they really went out of their way to make you feel for her, because this is a woman who couldn't have a child, gets this gift of a child, and he turns evil. And the way he reacted to things and some of the portrayal made me think right away of we need to talk about Kevin and with Tilda Swinton. And unfortunately, this kid is no Ezra Miller. And Ezra Miller, I know a lot of people hate him as Flash, but he's a damn fine actor. The father was kind of forgettable also. he didn't really have enough to do. And then the couple of things he did have to do is kind of playing dopey dad, and I just didn't feel it. There are some huge wink and nods to Man of Steel. There's even a part where they're playing the music from the trailer originally from Man of Steel, where the Brandon's talking to the mother, and Tori's doing the Pa Kent version of "You Are My Son." I mean, they've even played the score. It was just knowingly like, we're kind of goofing on this movie. So that's why I made the comparison Man of Steel, and we need to talk about Kevin. And then when it shifts in this horror movie, I've seen a lot of people saying it's gory and, over the top. It is, I guess, graphic for this kind of movie, but if you're a regular horror connoisseur like myself, it's nothing over the top. I mean, yeah, I want to say her name right, Erica, she's pulling the glass out of her eye. It was a little prolonged and it made me squirm a little bit. But most of the other stuff, it happens so fast and it's gone. It's not prolonged. It's just there and done. I do kind of weirdly like the concept, and they had the balls to set up a whole freaking universe, which kind of fascinating that they would do that. And now, basically he's lost all his shreds of humanity. The family was all he had left anchoring him, and they're gone. So I wonder if they're going to jump ahead now if they do a sequel with an older Brandon, where now his powers are fully developed and the world has to figure out how do we stop this lunatic, or if other superpowers are going to come up. I did like the cinematography on it. They kept it fairly grounded for what it was, which is the weird thing when I'm comparing it to Man of Steel, which had this bombastic, iconic imagery, where this doesn't have that, other than Brandon with his weird mask kind of creepily showing up in the background in some places, where you see his little cape that he made flowing behind him in the shadows. I'm going to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. Again, I had a couple of pacing issues in the middle. It moved a little slow, where I did find myself kind of checking my watch at certain points. But by far not a bad movie. Totally held my interest. I'm curious in seeing where it goes. And I think it's worth paying to go see in the theater. I'm not sure if when this comes out it's going to be a buy for me. Definitely a rent is where I'm sitting on it now. Maybe the more I think about it, it might marinate a little bit more. I'm kind of curious what the impact of this movie culturally will be, because it's good. Again, it wink and nods a little too much to Man of Steel, where it cheapens it, but I love the fact that they just went full evil Superman and how people would deal with it. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Share, like, subscribe, comment, and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.